So Eden is out this weekend, and I think it's a movie that people are either going to really love or really hate, or maybe love to hate or hate to love. Eden is a true story that follows several groups of people as they move from Europe to the island of Floriana in the Galápagos Islands in the 1920s. And not only do they struggle to survive and build new lives, but they also wrestle with their own demons and wrestle with each other in the sense that they're building and breaking alliances with each other. It stars Jude Law, Sydney Sweeney, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, and Daniel Bruhl. It's directed by Ron Howard and written by Noah Pink. And I think there's going to be a lot of criticism of this movie because I think a lot of people are not really going to understand it. It kind of feels like Survivor, but in the 1920s. Only it's not a TV show, it's a movie based on a true story. And maybe some people are going to ask, why does this story need to be made? Because it doesn't really follow a structure that Hollywood tends to follow with their movies, where you have to have a certain amount of action or a certain amount of elevation or a certain amount of stakes. And I think that some people are going to take issue with that. But because it's a true story, I think that's what makes it so compelling. And I really enjoyed this. What up, guys? I'm Pete. I'm an actor and filmmaker. I love movies. I try to do one movie a week, usually new movies as they come out. Hit that like and subscribe button while you're here, and we'll get into it. So the movie starts out with the Whitmers, this young German couple played by Daniel Bruhl and Sydney Sweeney, landing on the island of Floriana. And this island is already inhabited by Dr. Ritter, played by Jude Law, and his wife Vanessa Kirby. And he is this sort of nihilistic, egotistical writer who's come to this island. And that's where the movie begins. Dr. Whitmer had come to this island to write this whole new manifesto about how human beings have kind of fucked up their lives and their relationship to each other and nature. And he's this very Nietzsche-like character, very egocentric and very eclectic and nihilistic. And he's there, on his typewriter writing this manifesto. And what makes it even weirder is that his wife is also kind of one of his adoring fans. And they have this very idealistic utopian version of what we're doing. We're going to this island to, be revolutionary in how we create life and to sort of set the example for the rest of the world about how to live in such a way that is in harmony with nature and most in touch with our own human nature. And as you tend to figure out with people like that, there's a lot of problems and things don't always go so well. And so this new couple, the Whitmers, arrive and they're sort of looking for his help as they settle into their lives on the island. But the Ritters don't really want them there. And so the Whitmers are looking for help, but there's this weird, passive aggressive, dismissive relationship right away. And for the first act of this movie, I was like, is this going to be one of those weird movies that's just so passive aggressive and nothing really happens, but it's all about the unspoken tension between these two couples? And I thought, I don't know if this is going to go well. But then in the second act, this woman, Baroness Eloise, arrives on the island with her lackeys. It's played by Ana de Armas. And that completely alters the dynamic of the movie right away. She has sort of these weird grandiose plans for what she wants to do on this island. And she has this group of 3 men that are with her. And they have this sort of weird dynamic between her and 2 of them that I don't want to spoil by giving it away. But I think what this starts to show in the movie is something that I've often thought about, is that, how our ancestors came to America in wooden boats blown across the ocean with a piece of cloth with, barely the clothes on their back, and to kind of be the sort of person that does that, who starts life completely from scratch in a harsh landscape, a deserted island, no community, no, there's dangers and sickness, and you don't have the comforts and conveniences. To be the kind of person that does that, you have to be a little bit crazy, right? It's not your neurotypical person who does that. And I think this movie shows that really well, that the type of people who do that are just not your average people. And that makes for very compelling storytelling, because obviously there are things that they do that you maybe can't always relate to. Even though it is very grounded in human nature, it's the human nature of somebody that we would not think of as your average human being. And I think this movie puts a spotlight on that really, really well. I have to say, Anna de Armas absolutely steals this movie. I mean, she is electrifying every time the camera is on her. And it's not just that she's beautiful, but she plays the role that she plays with such a different intensity. Usually, Anna de Armas plays sort of the bombshell, but this time she plays this very interesting character who has a lot of layers to her. And not only is she sort of charming the people around her, she's seducing you, the audience. And every time the camera is on her, I was just very, very compelled. And it's in a very different way than we usually see Anna de Armas. So she absolutely steals the show for me in this movie. And I want to see more of her in these type of roles. And so as the movie goes on, we now have this dynamic of three different groups of people, and it completely alters the dynamic between the two couples who were there first. And things just start to get more and more unhinged as the story goes on, and you can't look away. And I think what makes it even more compelling is that you know it's a true story. I don't know how much creative license Ron Howard and Noah Pink took with this movie in terms of, the original book that was written about it, but it really starts as a slow burn and then it just sort of descends into this electrifying intensity that you can't look away from. Acting wise, I want to give a shout out to Sydney Sweeney. This is a very different role than she usually plays, and she does the whole movie in a pretty believable German accent. As the movie starts, she's sort of a very plain Jane type character, no makeup, a very meek, submissive wife. And at first you think, oh, there's not much there. But then as the movie goes on, she starts to take on a more central role in the plot and really comes into her own. And by the end of the movie, you can't look away from Sydney Sweeney either. And I thought this was a very interesting look at Sydney Sweeney, who usually plays, sort of like Anna de Armas, the sort of femme fatale, but like in a very cutesy way, different than Anna de Armas. It's more like a, hot young girl. In this one, she plays a very contained woman who obviously has had things go on in her life where she feels like life has happened to her instead of her really taking on her life. And towards the end of the movie, she starts to grow into who she really is, and she really grabs your attention. I thought Sydney Sweeney was very good. Jude Law does a fantastic job of playing that sort of madman, obsessed with himself, delusions of grandeur, believes his own hype, and the type of person that he becomes. And as we start to see throughout the movie who he really is, he does a really good job of that. Vanessa Kirby is very compelling in her own way. It's a quiet way, but she also starts to grow. That's what I mean about this movie. Everybody kind of grows into these characters to the end where you don't know who you're rooting for. You can kind of empathize with everybody to some degree and also dislike them at the same time. The only character that didn't really grab me emotionally was Daniel Bruhl's character, the Whitmer husband. He does a good enough job acting wise, like he's believable. I just don't think his arc was strong enough for me to have a strong point of view or to really empathize with him in any way. And I think that's more down to the writing and the story than, Daniel Bruhl himself. He did a fine job, but he sort of plays this beta male character and doesn't really drive the plot forward for me. One thing I really liked about this movie is that it didn't romanticize this sort of survivalist movie type of plot. Where sometimes when you talk about survivalist movies or, people on a tropical island, there's a lot of wide shots and they're trying to show the glorious beauty of the place. And it tends to idealize this idea of human beings starting from scratch, the whole like lone wolf situation. This movie doesn't do that. This movie shows not only exactly the kind of person that does something like that, but it also shows how difficult it is to literally build from scratch in a wilderness island, no matter how beautiful it is. And it feels very grounded and very contained. You feel like you're stuck in the harsh realities of what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, where, survival, it's very high stakes situation. You don't have comforts or conveniences. You're not always safe. What happens if you get sick? What happens if you run out of food or fresh water? There's so many things that can go wrong. And it really shows the harsh reality of everyday sort of settler life. And I liked that it showed that. It also showed what happens when human beings don't have enough community, which is a fundamental human need, and how very quickly we can spin off into madness when community, which is a very important need, is not met. Overall, I'm giving this movie an 8 out of 10. And I don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea. I think some people are going to struggle with the lack of like incredible plot points throughout the movie, but it is that slow burn that just draws you in. And once you get pulled into it, you can't look away. I was captivated the entire time. I was feeling like I was there, and Ron Howard does a really good job of that. It's absolutely worth seeing in theaters because I think it is so claustrophobic in some ways that when you're pulled into it, you feel like you're stuck in it. So I'm giving, and I think that's a sign of really good storytelling. 8 out of 10 for me. That's it for me, guys. Go watch Eden in the theaters. I think we need more storytelling like this. And like I've said before in past videos, if you want to see more good quality storytelling like this, you have to go support them. So go see it in theaters. I hope this movie does well. It doesn't have a huge wide release. I know a lot of theaters are not showing it, but if you have one in your area that is, definitely go see it. Is 100% worth your time and energy. Let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys soon.